All right. So that was our introduction to the form workspace. Let's make some stuff with that. We're gonna tonight make a spoon. Now, like I said, the assignment for this is you need to make three separate objects. The first two can be the original and then a modified one. So make a spoon and then chop holes in it to make a ladle or a spork or a battle spork. I don't know, whatever you want to add to it. The third one needs to be its own separate thing entirely. Again, that could be like a knife or a spatula. These are all like basically kitchen utensils, but whatever you consider to be a kitchen utensil. I don't know, a adjustable wrench, a chainsaw, a broadsword, a flamethrower, blunderbuss. I don't care. Whatever the third one is, whatever you are capable of doing, more power to you. So let's start with the basics and just make a spoon from there. All right. The old hop over to Fusion, see what we're talking about. All right. So right now, those are in color mode, Shift N to show you the appearances, and currently they're just default. So remember, you can always apply whatever you please to this. I don't know, we'll make a snazzy glass spoon or spork, and then, I don't know, some sort of course, oh, why not chrome? Extra super fancy chrome, bam, super friggin' fancy. Cool, whatever. All right, so as you can see, these two here are duplicates of one another, modified separately. I've just added wings and silliness just to show different ways of modifying these. They don't just have to be a straight, like, basic spoon. I expect you to make modifications to them, but you can see how I would have created sketches and extruded downward to make the holes for the ladle or the tines for the spork. Same diff. We're not looking for super high fidelity, just showing capability with using the new tools, the formwork tools, and the originals. All right. Well, how the hell do you make this stuff? And yeah, that's a super heavy handle. You could definitely crack an egg or a skull with that. You'd make whatever you want. How do you make this stuff? Well, with the form tools. The old let's start a new one and go from there. Now, you are welcome to freehand this as you like. If you're trying to make something a little bit more detailed or a little more true, you could always find an image and build from there. So first things first, save. Control save, example, in glass. God, I cannot spell. All right. So to begin, I want to insert a canvas, insert from computer, find the image. I found an image of a spoon. Standard procedure, pick a plane. I recommend the XY plane, so you're working like you're working straight down. Select there. It's going to bring in your object. You can, of course, put it wherever you want. Go from there. I'm going to modify it in a moment, as in put it to size, but right now, that works for me. You can, of course, swap it back and forth however you like. Hit OK. All right, I do want to modify this canvas, so right-click on the tool, edit canvas. Nope, calibrate. Pick a couple points on your spoon image, not the overall image, the actual spoon itself. There and there. 14 millimeters. That's a pretty tiny spoon. Regular spoon, I don't know, somewhere there-ish. So let's say like 120. Make this a gargantuan spoon. I don't care. Oops. There we are. Right? It will be the big spoon. But I will warn you, if you are trying to build this off of an image, it is really, really helpful to try to center this image a little bit better. So what I mean by that is right now, this the red axis, the x-axis, doesn't quite go through the middle. So let's move this around a little bit. Edit canvas allows me to shift it a little, as well as rotate just a bit. It's between 5 degrees, so let's say, I don't know, 2 degrees. Maybe it's more like 1, something like that. All right. Try to get this a little more in the center. That looks pretty good. Doesn't have to be exact, but it'll be a little less obnoxious when you're trying to copy this. Okay. That's a spoon, kind of sort of in the middle. Doesn't matter that it's askew. That's irrelevant. Let's just save there for reference. Import canvas. I do realize I missed the P on that. So it's just import. Okay, we're going to start with create form because that's what we're working with all exclusively to create the original object. We can use sketches and extrude and stuff like that to modify it later, but right now, create form. All right, into the form workspace. Now, we just went over playing with starting from like some pre-made shapes like box, cylinder, sphere, quad ball, all that. But I want to start with this one. We're going to start simply with a plane. We're actually going to join a couple of planes together, build from there, or plane and a bowl, whatever. Basically, the best way to approach some of these things. So I'm going to start with plane, building directly on top. Now, plane, same way as building from a box. You have two options. It starts from rectangles. So in this case, center point rectangle or a 2-point, center point rectangle. So this is why I was saying build it on the axis. There we go. We're just going to build a rectangle close enough-ish. Doesn't have to be exact. We can modify it afterwards. Do not hit enter, but instead left click. Because now I want to subdivide this and such. So what that means is I can make more additions. I don't want to make it overly complex. Keep it simple for now. You can always add divisions later. I'm just going to add up to 3 faces. Now, it is important that I do have, in this case, top and bottom, but essentially a left and right, because I do want to make sure I at least have 2 faces across the width so I can add symmetry. Mirror across the width. The green line pops up. You can always add symmetry after the fact, but right now I can build it in right there. Okay, that's all I need. Cool. From here, modify. We're going to edit form. Now, by vertex kind of gets a little overwhelming. Instead, let's limit this to select by edges. Now I have the edge. If I select one, I don't have to select both, but if you double click, it will select the whole edge along that line. All right. Remember that if I grab the plane here, I'm going to end up moving in and out and screw it all up, and it's going to get all kinds of wonky. Instead, what I want, if I'm moving up and down along the axis, use the arrow key, drag it along where you want. Don't overlap for here, just get close to where the bowl would be. Same thing with the backside. Drag this close enough. If you make it bigger, shorter, whatever. Remember, this is just, we're just using this image as a rough guide. That's it. All right. So from here, though, I would recommend now we can start playing with like vertices and things like that. So if I select here, if I move inward, and this was certainly I can play around with the free transform, you can see how I can start to stretch and manipulate it down. Now, this is a little possibly too simple. I could always add in more later. Let's zoom in again, move from back here. Maybe I grab the edge, drag that inward. Now, a word on corners and such. This can get a little awkward in that, well, what if I want this to actually be like a fully rounded back? Well, actually, probably one of the easier things to do, we talked about how you can delete like faces and stuff like that. You can delete vertices too. If I hit OK, I can still select a vertex. If I delete that, it rounds out the whole thing. Because basically, I just took a corner and a vertex and deleted that. So what happens? It goes off of the 2 next vertices and automatically creates a corner. So you don't have a lot of control with it, but it is a way to do that. Otherwise, you can simply try to modify this as best you can, round it out, things like that. You can grab the edge and you could scale that down. You can shrink it that way, grow it, shrink it, whatever. So there's a lot of different ways you can play with this. I grabbed an image of a painfully simple spoon. And there we are. If I want to shrink this down, again, I can grab a vertex and actually move that in and out. Or I can grab like the edge and I can actually use a scale tool and shrink that. In this case, it's kind of going to end up with doing the same thing because this is simply a single dimension or a 2-dimensional flat plane. So keep that in mind when you're working like this. But it does seem to work better by using the vertex. Now, if you decided, or if you realize that, I really would like a little more control with this, I don't have as much to work with, hit OK. You can go to Insert Edge. This is where you select an edge. So here in the middle, double click that, and you see this green line that appears? That's going to create another subdivision, or you can select both, and it'll go on both sides of that line, and it'll just create more edges and more faces to work with. This slider moves it closer or further from that originating edge. And it's a value system of 0 to 1. 0 being exactly on the original line, 1 being all the way to the next available line. 0.5, smack in the middle. Hit OK. Now I suddenly have a lot more points to work with. So if you wanted to be able to have access to that, that's how you can work with those. So this is a great way of now just having a little bit more detail. But like I said, you can start with a really simple object, create complexity later. It's just a lot easier to handle fewer things at once and then add details later. So again, I'm not getting that point. I'm not getting this line all the way to the edge here, just getting it close enough because we're going to join the two with a bridge later. I'll show you what that means, but you're literally making a bridge between two things. So cool. All right, that works. Hit OK. If I want to make this back end rounded, remember you take the corner vertex, delete it. I'll have to go back and modify again, but that's going to let me kind of shrink and grow this. Again, I don't have to make it exact, close enough, or whatever you want it to be. Go for it. You want to make this into like a squid spoon? Cool. There we go. All right. Neato burrito. All right. So that's it. That's all I need to do for the handle right now. So we'll save. Handle plane. Now I'm going to create the bowl. Now I could absolutely create this with another plane, push and pull vertices, but it's really kind of a pain to create a rounded thing out of a flat thing. So the easiest way to work with this is create with a sphere. So I'm going to create on the same plane. I'm going to try to get it smack in the middle here, close enough, kind of get it close to the center of the bowl, and just drag outward. Now, a couple things here. I definitely recommend keeping it simple. Right now you can see it's obviously a whole sphere. There's only 6 faces, longitudinal and latitudinal. I think the default is usually 8. I've minimized them. Don't use the quad ball. Use the sphere here. It works a lot easier, but if you use the quad ball, it's not the end of the world. It's fine. And then shrink it to where or size it to where it's not huge, but it's pretty well close to the sides of the bowl. Don't worry if it's front and back because a spoon is longer than it is wide usually. If you end up making it more of like a scoop, cool. You can totally make a coffee scoop out of this. I don't care. Actually, I'm still using a coffee scoop that I printed or that I modeled and printed. I've been using it for the last several years. It works great. Mainly because I wanted to scoop it with a longer handle so I didn't have to like shove my hand into the bag and down into the bag like I'm reaching for the last Pringle. Yeah, you could always just tip the whole thing up. They cannot, which is exactly the problem. So that's why I made a long handle for them. All right, so close enough is close enough, side to side wise. Hit OK. Now, I probably should have put on symmetry, but at the same time, not really, because there's a couple of things about this. One, I don't want to align this quite this way, but it'll work fine. The other thing is, I actually don't need this whole sphere. Told you could delete vertices, you can also delete faces. In this case, I want to select everything above the top. So if I use a from the left selection box, remember that will only select what is entirely inside the box. Not enough. If I select from the right, it selects all the things that that box touches. So in this case, half the thing, delete it. Now I have just the internal surface of half a sphere. Now you can see where I'm going with this. All right, from here, now we're going to start modifying it. So obviously we need to stretch this, stuff like that, but this also right now is one heck of a deep spoon. So obviously we're going to switch to edit form again, but now we're going to talk a little bit about how to make some more uniform things. So before, we've been using just the basic modifier to where like you can grab a single edge, a single face, a single vertex, or a handful of them, whatever, and you're moving the whole thing just as a cluster with no real subtlety to it. In this case, if you look at the toolbox, down and down, the second selection option, soft modification. I'm going to check that box, and that extends it out. So you have a couple of things here that look a little weird. What happens is you have selection by the area of effect. Like I said over here, if I select one point, just one point, I can move up and down. But the area of effect means how wide outward from that one point it goes. Your options are either the shape of a circle, square, or simply by definition, by like just outward points. Keep it default as a circle. Easiest way to work, especially since we're working on a circular thing. Other one, transition, smooth, linear, or bulge. Leave it as smooth. We'll get into the details of that later. So ideally, that means you have a smooth transition. Okay, so with this step, I like to use by selection by vertex. So I'm selecting the bottom half of the bowl using from a left selection, so all the things that only it selects. Or better yet, just to show you the area effect, all of that stuff. And of course, what's frustrating is that the other tools only pop up once you've made a selection. So let me zoom in here and you can see. All right, so I selected the very bottom and the second row of vertices. You see how my lines went from black to now they go from sharp deep red and move upward to white. That is the area of effect I'm currently using. So if I shrink the distance down, say like 10 millimeters, now you can see how the red is much more localized, goes out to white, and then shifts back to black. Black means it has no effect whatsoever. There's no curve. It's just how it's going. This red here, as now I'll show you, if I shrink this down, you see how it's not moving everything all at once, just the whole thing. For comparison, if I turn off soft modification and select the same things I had, oops, look how much more aggressively it moves everything. With soft modification on, it keeps everything a little bit smoother. So that's just an easy way to work. Play with that, see what happens. But basically, I'm obviously trying to shrink the bowl without making like a weird divot. Now, right now, one quick thing to be aware of is the red is extending all the way to the edge. I might want to shrink the area of effect a little bit more because I don't really want it to affect the top there. So I'm going to select these all again. Let me shrink the area of effect again, maybe like 5 millimeters. Now it's not affecting the black area at all. So shrink it. It's making it a little bit more of a smooth bowl. That's all. And ultimately, if you kind of make this divoty or whatever, it's not a big deal. I'm just showing you how you can minimize it. And sometimes it's going to get a little wonky on you anyway. Do your best. Okay, so right now, this is very uniform. But I got the bowl pretty much how I like it, as in, it's a little bit too wide, but as far as depth, yeah, it's kind of like a nice, like, shallow soup spoon, that kind of thing. But I want to extend it forward and backwards. So soft modification is still on. Let's grab vertices just by the front. And sometimes it's a little awkward seeing what you're doing here. So as I drag it outward, you can see that it actually makes a pretty nice, smooth transition forward. Again, I have the soft modification checkbox selected, and it works pretty well. What I did is I just grabbed those two vertices right in the center. So if you had mirrored symmetry on, it's not a big deal. In this case, I'm being careful, but realistically, if you're working this way, I really recommend having symmetry on. So I'm just left and right, same thing. Symmetry works. Okay, I haven't made any changes, but at least now, if I were to go and accidentally grab like one of these points, at least now it does it on both sides. So if you didn't already, turn on the symmetry, or if you start new, activate symmetry when you create the sphere itself. Now, again, I am not going too close to the edge here. You can still grab like those two vertices, drag it backwards, but I don't need to actually complete this space between the two. I'm going to use a different tool in a moment. Don't worry about that just yet. But we're just going to kind of look around. Yeah, it's kind of a little funky. It's actually might be even be a little bit shallow. You can always, if you want, move things around, play with that. But yeah, that's kind of a spoon. It's a little bit basic. Not bad. Hit okay. Okay, that's sort of kind of a spoon. Now, one thing is it looks okay from the top, but from the side, that is a that is a flat spoon. So this is a great place to then say like go to modify and change the handle around a little bit. We'll even turn on the soft modifiers and I don't know, grab a couple and just kind of give it a little bit of a curvature, that sort of thing. So, at least it seems like it's not like the worst possible spoon to use. It actually like fits your hand to some degree. This is just playing around. Okay. So it's got a little bit of a curvature. Great. All I did was move some vertices up and down just to give the spoon hand a little bit of curvature. All right. Save there. Bowl. Made. Made. All right. Now I want to join those two together. Go to modify, and the tool we're going to use is bridge. As you can see, create segments to connect two opposing faces within a body or between bodies. Basically, it's going to fill that gap by creating a bridge. You know how bridges work. That was pretty aptly named. All right. So the toolbox comes up. Your selections, you have side one, side two, and some other stuff. Follow curve, we're going to ignore. Preview, that is helpful. All right, side one, you have either the handle or the bowl. It doesn't matter whichever one you want to select. Make sure you double click so you get the whole thing. Symmetry is on, so it shouldn't matter, but double click. And you can see it's kind of subtle. The little black line turned yellow. It's easier to see. Let me try color shift. Might be easier to see it that way. Yeah, there you go. Side two, over here, just the edge. Double click. Unable to bridge periodic, non-periodic. Okay, so this is an issue that sometimes pops up. It gave me an error. If I select preview, it doesn't matter. What the issue is here, and look from the top and it'll be a little bit easier to understand. Basically, it's trying to create a line from here to here. However, the issue is, one, your faces have to match, as in like the number of them. So, or edges in this case, 1, 2, 1, 2. That should work. However, it's such a large span that it's having trouble calculating. So maybe it would have been better to actually have had 8 longitudinal or latitudinal lines instead of 6. Whatever. So if you run into this, okay, you cancel, insert edge. It's exactly what we talked about. You can see if I select there, I have currently selection mode both, smack in the middle. Cool. I could probably get that a little bit closer if I want, or leave it right where it was, 0.5, hit OK. All right, now that did distort my bowl a bit. I'm gonna have to go back and work on this a little bit. Or let's try one other thing. Let's make edge all the way down. So I just double clicked that line. It didn't go all the way through. It just went down to the center vertex. Let's try that, see what happens. Still warped the spoon a bit, but all right. Okay, so I'll have to go back and correct this a little bit. Not a big deal. Let's see. Looks like select those. Let's drag that in a little bit. Oh, okay. That actually worked pretty well. Just those two. So that's not a big deal. Cool. Oh, I probably should have had soft modification on. Oh well. Before you finished, go ahead and give it a look around. All right, it still looks fairly spoony, so I guess we're good. All right, now let's try the bridge tool again. Go to modify, bridge, side one is the handle, side two, right there. Still giving me the issue. It's periodic to non-periodic. It's fine. There's no problem there. Maybe I needed to make that less. I don't know. That's mildly frustrating. All right, let's try this. Let's bring that in a little bit. Try it from there. Bridge. Oops. Yeah, sure. Oh, accidentally selected by face. No, the edges, you jerk. There we go. I accidentally selected the face there. That's all. Okay, this is a first. I've not had it not allow me to work again. Oh, there it is. I think it probably would have worked fine before. The issue is that it's looking from the side. Curve is coming down at an angle, and the spoon bowl is flat. So the issue is essentially, remember, it's trying to create a fit point spline between the two, and that's a weird sharp angle.
Can't they just decrease into the bottom of the table?
Not right now because they're also so close together. It doesn't really want to work that way. All right, so at least we figured out the problem. Not a big deal. Let's go back to the bowl as it was and see what happens when I now modify. Let's just move that up a little bit. All right, let's try this once more. Side one, up there. Side two. Okay, it's too close now. Or I do definitely need that edge. Wait. There we go. All right. Yep. It was just too close. That's all. Okay. So one of the main things, it's going to want to try to create a whole bunch of little lines here. Remember, keep it simple. Faces, and just one. That's plenty. Now these extra lines here, those are just the display mode lines. It's not actually altering anything. So, all right, hit OK. There we go. So now it just merged the two together a little bit. All right. So the problem was, one, I had made that side a little bit too awkward for it. And then up top, it just needed these lines to be a little bit closer together. The edge, or those edge lines, they just need to be a little bit more similar to one another. So if you run into that trouble, usually that's the kind of thing. Just look at it from a different angle. You should be okay. All right. Save. Bridge tool. Okay. So now I've got my kind of mildly funky spoon. But right now, it is the thickness of a sheet of paper. It just has only surface dimension. There's no thickness to it. There's not an actual object. It's just a surface. So the easiest thing to do with that, thicken it. Pretty straightforward. The last step is thicken. Select the now completed body. It's going to give you an image of the display mode. That's not like it's suddenly going to become a really sharp, like dagger spoon. It's just showing you in a really rough geometric shape. Now you have a couple of options here. How thick should it be? Give it at least like, I don't know, like 3 millimeters. That ends up actually being a pretty dense spoon. So I don't know. You can always change it again. Just remember that you are not creating, as you look down here, there's no additional timestamp objects. It's only Form Workspace. So you can only go back and forth by Control Z. So meaning that what if I wanted to finish this, make it thick, finish, save, come back later. Oh, I made it too thick. You're not going to be able to change the thickness later without deleting faces and kind of forcing yourself to work backwards. So what that means is if you're running short on time, don't add the thickness now. Do it later when you come back to it. But all right. The other, excuse me, the other options are the edges. If it's sharp, it's going to end up like a rectangle. It's going to be thicker, but it's going to be like square on the edges. So Not great for a spoon. Switch it to soft. Leave the bottom one as basic as normal, and you're all set. Hit OK. Now we have created a, to be fair, kind of chunky like kidney spoon. So there is that. So if you end up accidentally making a little bit too chunky of a spoon, I'd recommend, again, you want to make it thinner, Control Z, reapply the bridge or reapply the thicken, maybe make it 1 millimeter thick. So that makes the bowl as thick, but we can always make the handle a little bit bigger by going back again to modify form. So this is why I said back and forth a few times, but let's work by faces this time. Let me select just down the length, and I'm just going to drag that upwards a little bit, or a lot. Exactly. You can always select a few less, drag that upward. You can see how quickly you can start to make super chunk spoon. Or you can drag this outward and just make it basically you're just making a blackjack that you can also eat cereal with. So, whatever. If you wish to have like more of your assault type spoon, go for it. Or if you want to make it slightly less aggressive, that's fine too. But main thing is you can modify this stuff afterwards. So that's why I say if you accidentally make the bowl itself a bit too thick, Control Z, or if you're on Apple, Command Z, shrink the thickness a little bit so your bowl is a little more adult friendly rather than kid safe, and then go back, use the edit or the edit form tool and thicken out, or sorry, shouldn't say thicken because I don't want to confuse you. Use the edit form to then just manipulate how big the handle is a little bit. And that's all. All right, hit OK. And like I said, you can always also, if you really want, keep playing with this. Let's go to faces. I don't know. I showed you how you can use you can press Alt and actually extrude from there. So I don't know if you want, make it, give it some horrible legs so your spoon crawls away from you. So do whatever you want to this. More power to you. It just still technically has to, I don't know, have the utensil part to it. If it's completely unusable, that's fine. This is absolutely just an experiment and stuff. So, all right. So, hooray! I've made my alien nightmare spoon creature hybrid. Awesome. We'll subdivide that more later and show you how to make some more fun features. But let's just say, all right, creature spoon. Now I need to make more than one of these nightmares. All right. I think it's just gonna like fly away or something. So what you want to do is remember these need to be on separate components. All right. We've done this before, but what we haven't finished is finished form. All right, let's turn it into a solid. Cool. Select my nightmare spoon, create a new component. Great. Now still the original. But let's make more of these terrible things. Copy and paste. Let's move it over. So I have more than one of these terrible things. All right. Now you can obviously modify it more later, or rather move it into the other components later. But you can do it right now. Component 2 drops that over. Didn't change it. That's cool. I can drag and drop. Doesn't matter. However you want to approach this. But what I do want to do is modify one of these. So let's activate the spoon 1, right? Spoon 2. All right. Let's activate the second component with the spoon tool nightmare. Now I'm going to create a sketch. Go back to what we're used to do. If you're having trouble with this, remember you can use, this is a perfect time to use project by body. Select that nightmare. There we go. And now I can hide the bodies and I have my outline. So that's where it's super easy to use. So from here, all right, let's create like a spork. All right. Center point rectangle. Let's see if I can get kind of sort of right in the middle there. All right. Out and out. Sure, that length works. And let's make that 1.5. That seems reasonable-ish. Okay. Oops, what did I just press? Wrong one. Where did my there we go, sketch. And I'm just gonna round out this backside here. Show you why in a second. Oop, too many. 0.6, sure, whatever. Okay. All right, and now select that whole sketch, use the rectangle pattern, direction symmetric. Let's make multiples of these. Oops, wrong one. That one's metric, and let's make 5. More. There we go. Okay. Finish sketch. Now, unhide the bodies. Use the old extrude tool. Multiple things. Let's make sure we do symmetric. Both of them. Oh, I didn't select all the. And it selected the ones that I actually don't care if it selects. There we go. But down, cut, bam. Now I have kind of sort of made it into a spore. So that's what I mean by modifying these. So, all right, my squirrel alien nightmare creature now has a spork tail. The other one could stay a spoon, or I could then say go over to the other, activate that one, same deal, sketch, project, grab that, hit OK. Hide bodies. This one, I don't know, we'll put a circle in the middle. And now let's make a couple more of those. Probably should have just used the rectangle tool for this one. Circle pattern, round. Let's make a lot more of those. Okay. Do it again. Center point. More circles. Okay. Finish sketch. And again, obviously you can see where I'm going with this. The old extrude. All of those things. I definitely could have done this a little bit smarter. Now I got to go and select. Oops, a daisy. Yeah, see, I accidentally selected those quite foolishly. It's the fun of selecting things individually. There we are. And then extrude. Remember, you can always use to object the distance type. So in this case, just select the bottom of it. Cannot extrude through object. Why? Fine, we'll go through distance. Oh, I must accidentally press something else. Hit OK. Oh, should have gone much further. But I can always go back with this because this is the old, the other type. I can keep extruding. I can go back, edit form, or sorry, edit detail, or edit feature. There we go. Forgetting words. There we go. Now my nightmare creature has a ladle spoon or a ladle tail. Great. Save. Trainer tail. Why not? All right. Hide the canvases. Switch back to color mode. Throw some appearances on. I don't know. One of these is for some reason. Let's see here. Sure, why not? Let's just make this terrible. It's made of lead because that's the ideal thing to make a spoon out of. Whatever is most toxic or impractical. Either or is good. The other one is wood, a nice rich, let's see, there we go. Nice rich mahogany. Hooray. All right. I've made these completely useless and completely ridiculous, but works for me. Like I said, you can make an original, you can make one, a modified, you can modify both of them. We're going to build from here, but that's basically what we're going to go. You can actually make this actually usable. Obviously, something like this, not this actual spoon type, because with this big absurd handle, but this would obviously be a way where you could actually create handles and stuff that are actually easier to hold. I'm going to show you different modifications, stuff like that later. Yeah, obviously not this one. This is absurd. But instead of like if you found utensils difficult to use with their handles too small or something like that, this is totally the space where you could build you can model a utensil that has a more ergonomic fit handle to your needs. If you need it, like if you had like mobility issues, stuff like that, you could absolutely intentionally make some handles that are larger for stuff like that. So that's kind of where we're going with this. Next class, I'm going to show you how to make some more dedicated things like um in this case, a simple spatula, or, yeah, that's fine, or a kitchen saber. Like I said, if you need to, I don't know, spread some butter or cut some lembas bread, whatever. All right. So those are nightmare spoons. Have at you. Done. And that's, go for it. And that's what we're going for. All righty. So play around, do whatever you like. Ultimately, has to be some sort of like utensil like that.